We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this college football rebel outpost. If you want to support this home for college football sickos with a donation to help us keep the lights on, hit that dollar sign. Where you make a comment and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. We welcome everybody, and I mean everybody, into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. We're just going to do a nice little live show early on a Saturday, April 19th. I know a lot of you are busy. There's a lot of sports going on. There's the NBA playoffs. Everyone's getting ready for the NFL draft. The portal's still going crazy. The NHL playoffs is starting up. Everyone's busy watching golf, playing golf. But in this studio, the fat guy from Minnesota, we're talking college football, 365 days out of the year. Now, we've already done in the offseason. We've talked a lot of football. We've done the way too early PATC, order of finish prediction for the SEC, Texas. For the Big 12, Arizona State. For the Big Ten, Penn State. For the ACC, and we've got Clemson. And then we've done our, let me see if I can find it. I was not ready. I did, we did the predictions. I do not have that lined up. I did the college playoff predictions. So we did the way too early college football playoff predictions. And there that is right there. And I'm not going to make any changes right now, but I think I might in the month of August. Texas and Clemson in the championship game. I got the Buckeyes and Penn State getting to the Final Four. I've got Miami and Notre Dame playing in the first round, 8 versus 9. But I've got Boise State number 12. Boise State number 12. I'm going to go over 4 contenders. Just a little bit, only for a minute. We're not going to take a deep dive until after the portal, until we get later into the summer. And then we might make some changes in August. But right now, Boise State, number the 12th seed. And we're going to talk about the 4 contenders. On the title screen, UNLV. Yes, UNLV. There is some, but there. I love their quarterback, and we're going to talk about it. The transfer quarterback, Dan Mullen. I think they're going to be in contention again. I could be dead wrong. But I think UNLV could be in contention once again. They got to play on the road at Boise State this year. We got Boise State. We got Navy. I can't. There's no way you can kick out Navy from being one of the... They got their backfield. They got their quarterback. He's back. Their backfield is back. Navy's got to be in there. Tulane is a pretty interesting... Summerall... No, he lost a lot of talent, but he seems to have gotten some talent back, and I think Tulane is going to be in the mix. We're going to go all through that in the monologue. In fact, we're going to start with that in our monologue. I want to get to a couple of stories, and then in the back half, we are going to be talking about something that is extremely important. It is. It's something that I know about. It's something that I talk a lot about off camera. I've talked a little bit on camera. And that is the Big Ten voting factions. They are so incredibly important. I'm not going to, again, this is going to be a nice, lazy afternoon, Saturday. We're not going to get too dramatic here. I'm not going to do too much of a deep dive, but people got to be aware. When I talk about some schools, most schools, to join the Big Ten, they're going to need that blend. They're going to need the help. They can be the zag, and someone is going to be else is going to be the zig. Zigzag. And it's because of the Big Ten presidents, chancellors. There is historical voting factions in the Big Ten. And some of these historical voting factions are stronger than ever, because the personnel, the faculties, the leadership at the highest level circles around particular schools, their interests. For Big Ten to expand, you need 70% of the vote. You need 13. You can only lose 5. That is reality. And we're going to get to it in the back half of the monologue. And a lot of people are doing a lot of great work out there in the college football YouTube community. They're doing a lot of, they're doing all this data stuff, right? Great work. Great work. Great work by College Football Mafia Show. Moen and the Professor, the Wild Jude, and Nathan Brown, and Rock and Rand, and everybody, they do great work. Some other people are kind of putting out stuff that, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but whatever. People are working hard, putting all the spreadsheet together. It all comes down to the votes. You're going to need 13 votes, and you only can lose 5. The Oregon-Washington situation, and boy, it was a situation, but we kept saying, we believe they have the votes. When everybody says they didn't, it was a legal counsel issue. That's what held back the Big Ten. And Fox, they weren't going to pay enough money. They weren't going to pay full freight, but they had the votes. At least that's what we believed, and it ended up being accurate. They did not particularly have the votes of Penn State. They did not have particularly the vote of Ohio State, but they had the votes of the other factions. Ohio State acquiesced at the end, gave full support, and now they're going to be carrying the rock here in the next Big Ten expansion. For really the first time, Ohio State is going to call the majority of the shot here when it comes to the Big Ten expansion. So the Buckeyes, President Carter is a faction unto himself. And Penn State. That's one faction. And you're going to have to get that faction on board. If they're not on board and everyone else is, it ain't going to matter. Not this time. That's one more thing I need to explain. Nobody has veto power. USC did not have veto power when it came to Oregon. And I said that over and over and over and over again, even though X and message boards were occupied with the incorrect information on that. USC did not have veto power. Nobody has veto power. But this situation, this particular next Big Ten expansion, the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions are as close as can be when it comes. Now they might support an expansion candidate. They might support an expansion candidate, and that's not the one that gets. Maybe that doesn't happen either. But there is not going to be a school that gets through without Ohio State and Penn State support. But there are other factions that these schools, they're using all this time, we talked about it yesterday in the live show. There's a lot of action going on. We called it, they're trying to get socialized. They're trying to get these presidents to talk about it. We are going to talk about a few of them And I think maybe they're going to understand why it's not all about viewership numbers. It's not all about brand. It never has been. Those are very important for your media partner to buy the dinner, but what you put on the plate in front of the media partner is going to largely have to do with what the presidents want. So we're going to go through that. Nobody else is talking about it. But it's the ball game. It's the ball game. Oregon is a massive brand. It is. Absolutely. But they weren't going to get into the Big Ten unless they got the right partner. And it just so happens to be their rival. And that rival happens to be a whole lot of schools wanted Washington into the Big Ten. So it's not just about the numbers. It's about the politics. We are talking about billion and billion and billion dollars of business at these institutions. These institutions have billions and billions and billions of dollars in endowments. They are massive. The University of Minnesota is everywhere in the state of Minnesota. It's got branches in Rochester. It's Duluth. It's these Michigan. The University of Michigan is everywhere. The Big Ten is an athletic conference, but it is also an academic brand. So I'm putting out there, this is big business. Nobody wants to dilute the brand. They're not going to give up that brand. And you have got to get these presidents' votes. If it costs them some money when it comes to Fox and NBC and CBS, well, but you've got to be able, those presidents have to check off the box when it comes to a particular school's candidacy. When it comes to North Carolina, when it comes to Virginia, when it comes to Clemson, when it comes to Colorado, Utah, or California, or Stanford, or Florida State, or whatever school you want to bring up, the presidential box, it has to be checked off. We are going to get into all of that later. There has been movement in the portal. David Stone, the 5-star, last year he was a true freshman, Oklahoma. There was a big battle for him, a recruiting battle. He went in the portal, and it sounds like he's going to the Buckeyes. There's other portal movement we're going to be talking about later in the show. Let's do a roll call here. Biggers Bo is in the house. My Prof, Kiran Shakar, David Kapusta, John Teal's in the house. Big Gun Shop, Preston from Greensboro, Hampton, to my Cowboys. Dave B is in the house. Big Gun Shop, Mick Stevens, Go Frogs, 21 bucks, 21. Kenneth Meaner, ECU is my dark horse in the American. Go Pirates. CFP Plus, good afternoon to you, sir. Tom DeBay. It's almost a certainty that a G5 has to go undefeated to make the college football playoffs, or can they be a one loss as long as it's a P4 team? Well, somebody has got to make the playoffs out of the G5. So if there's no G5 school that goes undefeated, and if there's no G5 school that has their only losses to a Power 4 team, there's still going to be a G5 school that makes the playoffs. So my answer would be that, yes, there can be a one-loss team that makes the playoffs. There can be a two-loss G5 team that makes the playoffs. Whatever is the top-ranking G5 school, they're going in. Jay Chapman is in the house. AAR is in the house. PNW Ute. Gonzaga can be the Zag. Daniel Gygax. Mr. Mountaineer, they picked up a tight end out of Bowling Green. Bowling Green, a highly productive tight end. Tumasta is in the house. Son of Sarek is in the house. How and why did Penn State and Ohio State become a faction? Well, they are a faction in this round of whatever happens in the Big Ten. Either complete denial of expansion or an expansion, because they both were not on the Washington and Oregon. They were not for it. But pretty much everybody else was. Michigan was, Wisconsin was, Iowa was a little bit, Iowa wasn't on board either. But everybody out, Northwestern, Illinois, Nebraska, Purdue, Indiana. Devin Dampler. But Terry Kane is in the house. Don't know how we would fit in with all them Yankee schools. Terry Kane getting a little nervous. Clinton Moses is in the house. Mike W. MBM is here. Cranky Tiger is in the house. Mark Matthews, no Parmesan on your pasta. No. Absolutely not. I'm a pretty simple pasta guy. Give me a little bit of sauce. Maybe I'm not a big pasta person. I'm not a big pizza person. Just give me a cheese pizza. Yeah. Lasagna, 3 cheese lasagna, 4 cheese lasagna, that's all good. But no, the meat in the cheese shall not meet. But there are 2 exceptions to that. Chicken Parmesan and turkey and Swiss. Everything else is not allowed in the Flugar household and should not be allowed in your household. Let the JV6 have their own playoffs. I do not like that idea, but that may happen in the future. It ain't going to be Navy. They just had a miracle season. Intra-conference intrigue movie. Time Blues. Thanks for everybody for coming on in. Let's get to a couple little stories here. Presented by the D1 Ticker. Great follow on X. Talking about the Washington Post. Jesse Doherty shares more of Stanford's men's basketball head coach Kyle Smith's remarks about a potential relegation and promotion system in the ACC. Smith noted earlier this month in San Antonio that the ACC were struggling for a place in the marketplace. We need to be the first ones to do something like this. The big boys, the SEC and the Big Ten, are trying to take over. Put some pressure on them in the Big 12 too. This is the ACC. Stanford's men's basketball head coach is shouting on the rooftops, this is the ACC. That's coming from Stanford. That's coming from Stanford. The ACC is basketball. So you come out and say, we're going to relegate teams to raise excitement and get back on top. We might need to think of a better word than relegation. You know, it could sting. But what it would be? Relegation. And if we try it and it doesn't work, what's the worst case? Oh boy. What if we try it and it doesn't work? What's the worst case? We get 4 teams in the tournament. That's just happened. Smith has yet to workshop the idea with other league head coaches, but acknowledge that Duke and North Carolina are unlikely to embrace a relegation system. He countered, his counter is that if they lost enough conference games to be in danger of relegation, then you're probably on a pretty hot seat anyways. Again, as you know here, I'm not a relegation guy in college sports. I don't think it's going to happen. And the Stanford basketball head coach, I think, explained why. North Carolina ain't going to get relegated in basketball. Duke ain't going to get relegated. They're not going to put their big... What if Florida State was just relegated because they went 2-10? It ain't, in my opinion, in my very strong opinion, it's not going to happen. And I don't hear a lot of support for it. Yeah, once in a while I get, and I love it when you guys talk about it. In the chat room, I've gotten plenty of phone calls. There are people for it. But I can't see the decision makers at these, especially these big brand schools, what is in it for them to create more excitement, that they might fall off, that they might be relegated. They might make a little bit less money next year because they're relegated. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. One other story, pretty interesting. Utah State Athletic Director Diana Sabao confirms that she was aware that the 4 schools who first departed for the Pac-12 would do so a month before the announcement was made, and adds, I was really worried last summer in August when they started talking about the first 4 that were going to be invited to the Pac, and I was like, oh my God, I've done 18 presentations. I've talked to all these people. And then it started to fall into place. And people said, well, be patient. You're not going to be part of the first group, but you're going to be asked. Then the Mountain West came to everybody and said, we need you to sign this MOU agreement, and we're going to pay Air Force and UNLV $10 million, and everybody else is going to be at $2 million. And I was like, hold on. Utah State, we just went to the second round. We got everybody in the Mountain West units for going to the second round of the tournament a year ago, and we're only going to get 2. We're only going to get $2 million. I don't want to be put in a corner. I don't want Utah to be put in a corner. So then we just got really aggressive, and it went from there. As everybody knows, Utah State was part of the second wave additions to the new Pac-12. Pretty interesting story. So Utah State knew about the 4 schools. They were going to be invited, and they weren't going to be part of that first wave. And we kind of knew that. We here at Peek Around the Corner, we reported the same thing. What we thought was going to happen is there were going to be 6 schools invited. We took the L on it here at Peek Around the Corner. We thought UNLV and Air Force was going to be part of the 6. Still can't figure out why they were not. Because they were part of the top 6 valuable brands in the Mountain West Conference. But it did not happen. I'm not sure what the Pac-12 was doing. I still think it was a mistake. But they brought in 4, and Utah State come on in the next wave. Interesting story. Interesting story. Okay. Here is a little CBS Sports talking about the top group of 5s. This was last month, about 20-some days ago. Will Backus. These teams are the group of 5 legitimate college football playoff contenders. I mostly agree. There are some teams on here that I did not add. So, first of all, of course, Boise State. They're losing Ashton Genty, who we're going to talk about in a little bit here. He's going to be drafted early in the first round of the NFL draft. But man, Boise State's got a whole lot coming back. They lost the edge rusher. They lost their leading wide receiver, who plans to enter the transfer portal. But they like the Fresno State transfer running back Malik Sherrard. They like their Gaines, who's coming back. A running back who was on the roster last year. Maddox Madsen, the quarterback, of course, is coming back. And they've got all 5 starting offensive linemen coming back, which is a big deal. We talked about it when we predicted in our way too early college football playoff predictions that Boise State was going to be the G5 representative. James Madison, I'm going to skip over them. I do not believe. First of all, somebody's got to tell me what is going to be happening at the quarterback position. I'm not sure what Coach Chesney is going to do there. I'm not going with James Madison. They're going to be battling for the Sun Belt Conference Championship. But I just can't have James Madison in my final 4. Not quite yet. Not quite yet in the G5. Navy, you got to have Navy. They capture the nation's attention. 6-0 start. They won 10 games. They beat Oklahoma in the bowl game. Blake Horvath is coming back. The starting quarterback. And their standout backs. They're 2 great running backs. Their whole backfield is coming back. Their offensive coordinator is coming back. They had the 3rd best scoring defense last year. Navy is going to be... They're going to win most of the games. Once again, they're going to be in the hunt. They got to be in the final 4 of the G5 contenders, in my opinion. Now, Tulane lost a lot. Mekhi Hughes, great running back. Loved watching him. He's going to Oregon. When we talk about Oregon, we got to talk about Mekhi Hughes. Oregon Ducks. He's going to do big things at Oregon. And, of course, they lost the quarterback, Darren Mensah, who went on to Duke, who absolutely played brilliantly last year. I love that Kansas State-Tulane game early in the season. The Kansas State Wildcats just got by Tulane. Avery Johnson, Darren Mensah going back and forth in that game. Mekhi Hughes was brilliant in that game. So they lost a lot of guys, but you know what, man? Simonza, this quarterback, they got from Ball State. The 2024 Mid-American Conference freshman, I don't think he's going to be QB1 at the start of the season. But he's good. He completed, he's really good. For a bad team, he was really good. There's a reason why that tight end at Ball State caught 94 passes. That kid's good. And then they've got TJ Finley and Donovan Leary, Illinois. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but they've got some talent. And you cannot count out Tulane's coach, John Sumrall. The Green Waves start the year at home against Northwestern. And then they play South Alabama. Now, South Alabama just lost quarterback Gio Lopez. He's probably going to be the starter at North Carolina. South Alabama just gained Zach Pyron, who was the QB2 for Georgia Tech, who went into the portal, came to Minnesota, but it was obvious he was way down. He couldn't win the QB1 or the QB2. He was QB4 at the end of the spring, so now he transfers to South Alabama. Tulane, Northwestern, and South Alabama. Then they return home to host Duke and Mensa in week 3. Duke and Tulane. Mensa going back to New Orleans, but that game is at home. And then they go on the road to Ole Miss. Going at least 3-1 in that span will solidify Tulane's status as a real contender. So if Tulane can go 3-1, if they can beat Northwestern, if they can beat South Alabama, if they can beat Duke or Ole Miss, it's a tough road. It's a tough road, no question about it. UNLV, I think they've got so there's a couple transfer quarterbacks that I think are the absolute correct fit for the team that they went to. One of them, Miller Moss, going to Louisville, playing under Jeff Brown's offense. I think that's the absolute correct fit. I'm really high on Louisville. I am really high on Louisville. Isaac Brown and Miller Moss and Jeff Brown's. I've got Louisville up in the top 3 of the ACC. I think I got them do-si-doing with Miami there for number 2. But the other great fit, Dan Mullen and Anthony Calandria, the quarterback of Virginia. Calandria, I think, is the absolute right fit for Dan Mullen. CBS Sports says he's the type of playmaker that should thrive under Mullen. He's also one of the 22 Power 4 transfers headed to Vegas in 2025. If you have any discussions with UNLV, beat writers, they are extremely confident, surprised about the transfer class. Dan Mullen, it looks like he attracted some guys to the program. UNLV plays at Boise State somewhere in the middle of the season. I think I remember that, but I'm not sure. But I know they play at Boise State, and it's not at the end of the season. That game could go a long ways in deciding who is going to be the G5 contender. So right now, I've got Boise State going to the playoffs. But UNLV, I think, is going to be right there. Tulane, if they can start the season 3-1. And Navy, I think Navy's going to be right there with a bullet. No pun intended. Navy is going to be right there. Tulane, UNLV, Boise State. Now, there are other candidates out there, and I'm sure you're going to let me know, Greg, you got it wrong again. Where is the MAC champion, Ohio Bobcats? Where is the Liberty Flames? Where is James Madison? Where is Army? Where is UTSA? So anyways, but those are the 4 that I think got the best shot right now. Now, my mind might change. My mind might change come August. But right now, here in April. Those are my top 4. Let me know how wrong I got it once again. Everybody's saying that UNLV can't repeat their performance of last year. Navy can't repeat their performance last year. Well, I think some of these teams will. Okay. Mark Matthews, relegation is ridiculous for conferences. Would only work with no conferences, but would hate it. What if UConn runs the non-P4 table and goes 2-1 against Duke, Syracuse, and BC? Then UConn has a great shot, Mr. DeBay. The hate viewership would be off the chart. Can you imagine LSU and Brian Kelly were playing in a relegation survival game? I get it. Some fans would absolutely love it. Some fans in the PATC family, you college football sickles, love the idea. I just don't think these schools aren't going to pull the trigger on it. That's where I'm coming from. But look, a lot of you love the idea. A lot of you love the idea. Let me go to now this year. This year we are thinking about, we are not sure yet. We are thinking about doing a live show during the first round of the NFL draft. Let me know if you would have any interest in popping into the chat room anytime on a Thursday night. I think it's Thursday night, correct? We've never done that before. Over the last couple of years, people have said, why don't you do that, Greg? And I said, well, we're not an NFL YouTube channel. We're college. But then again, we know these guys, right? We talk about these guys all the time. So maybe I will do it. Because I know you guys got a lot of opinion on these players, where they should have been drafted in the NFL draft. So maybe we're going to do it. Let me know in the comments section if you would have any interested. This is the CBS Sports mock draft that just came out a couple hours ago. So this is the latest one. Cam Ward, number 1. Projected team, Tennessee. We're not going to be cute here. This has been set in stone for weeks. Tennessee will soon bring in Cam Ward. Number 1. Number 2, look at this. Shedeur Sanders, Cleveland. Are there more sure things on the board? Yep. But as noted in the intro, I just can't imagine the Browns passing up on bringing in a player like Sanders, especially with Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco as the only other quarterbacks on the roster. Look, number 1, Shedeur Sanders is extremely accurate. Accurate quarterback. Number 2, he is extremely tough. He got hit a lot at Colorado. He does not have the arm strength as Cam Ward. You know, if you're going to throw it outside the numbers, you would rather have Cam Ward throwing it than Shedeur Sanders. I like Shedeur Sanders. I think he's a hell of a college quarterback, and I think he can be a great pro. I completely understand why Cleveland is going after him, would go after him if he's Now, do you think Cleveland's going to actually draft him? Let me know in the chat. That's pretty early. Travis Hunter, number 3 to the Giants. The Giants don't even have the opportunity to discuss taking Sanders with Cleveland. Cleveland taking him off the board according to the latest CBS Sports mock draft. Travis Hunter to the Giants. Woo! Let me know, Giants fans. Let me know. Number 4, Abdul Carter. This is the guy that the Patriots want. This is the guy that the Patriots fans want. addressing the offensive line is more obvious and dire need for the Patriots. But can the Patriots actually pass on Abdul Carter? I don't think they can. Now, there is a lot of edge rushers in this draft. A lot of great ones. And you're going to see a lot of them come off the board in the first round. One right after the other. Number 5, Mason Graham, Jacksonville. Great defensive lineman. Michigan Wolverines. I saw it firsthand against my beloved Gophers during the years that Graham played for the Wolverines. Big time player. Mason Graham. Number 6, here he is, Ashton Jeanty. The great running back, Boise State coming second in the Heisman. Travis Hunter going third to the Giants. Jeanty going 6th to the Raiders. First running back off the board. The Raiders were dead last in rushing last season. Jeanty is the obvious choice. Is he going to be the choice? Let me know in the chat room. Mabu, who had a great, outstanding combine. He ran a 4.91. He was absolutely, his draft stock went straight up. The offensive tackle from Missouri, projected to the Jets. Number 8, Jalen Waka, Georgia. Another edge rusher. He's the second one. You're going to see a lot of edge rushers being drafted in the first round. He checks a lot of boxes off that should be appealing to the Panthers. Outside linebacker, Jalen Rocker. Of course, T-Mac, McMillan, Arizona, Wildcats, projected team, New Orleans, pick number 9. The number 1 rated wide receiver in the draft. This kid is a phenom. Absolute phenom. McMillan. Number 10, the Bears going after Will Campbell. Drafting him, if he is there, makes a whole lot of sense. If you watch the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, he needs protection. Caleb Williams needs to feel a little bit more secure in the backfield. Will Campbell would be a great pick for the Bears, in my opinion. Then right after Campbell, Banks Jr. goes. The Texas OT offensive tackle. Calvin Banks, he's been the top-rated tackle prospect through the pre-draft process. So, again, is he going 11? Is he going number 10? Calvin Banks is going early. Mr. Longhorn. Number 12, now this surprises me a little bit. Matthew Golden. Now, we did some watch party games, Longhorns. Matthew Golden shined in those games. And I even said at the time, I didn't know he was that good. Is he this good to be picked number 12 in the first round? I will believe it if when I see it. The guy's going to be drafted early, but number 12? Interesting. Dallas Cowboys, they have been starved for a complimentary receiver opposite of Mr. Lamb for years. Let me know if you think that is going to happen. Will Johnson, the big, massive cornerback out of Michigan. Big dude. He's a big dude. The Dolphins picking Will Johnson. He's the number 1 ranked cornerback in the NFL draft. He's got all the immeasurables. And, of course, the great tight end out of Penn State, Tyler Warren, going to Indianapolis. There's no, again, number 14, Tyler Warren. To me, Tyler Warren is a top 10 draft pick in the NFL. To me, Tyler Warren is going to be a tight end. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. So if Indianapolis Colts can get Tyler Warren at 14, congratulations to the Colts, because this guy is a future Hall of Famer. Shamar Stewart, edge rusher, Texas A&M. He's dominant. Absolutely dominant. Tyler Booker, Alabama, interior offensive lineman, going to the Arizona Cardinals. He just got his first team All-SEC performance. Booker. Mike Green, the edge rusher from the Marshall Thundering Herds. Mike Green, he was dominant in these workouts that they have with during the Senior Bowl stuff, competition. I don't know if he was in the East-West Shrine. Whatever game that he participated in, he was absolutely dominant during the workouts, during the week before where they do the all those drills and everything. Mike Green was absolutely dominant over the tackles that he was going one-on-one against. And after that performance, Mike Green, without a question of a doubt, was going to be drafted in the first round. The Cincinnati Bengals are the projected team, according to CBS. Gray Zabel, North Dakota State, interior offensive lineman, the big giant, 6'6", 312 pounds, Jihad Campbell, another Alabama Crimson Tide linebacker, going to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to need some help because Levante David is about to end his career. Maybe he's got one more year left. Colston Loveland, tight end. Look, he's good. He's no Tyler Warren. He's going to get picked 6 picks behind Tyler Warren. This might be a little early on Colston Loveland. CBS Sports has him the number 1 tight end in the draft ahead of Tyler Warren. Nope. He's good. Don't, you know. Now, there is some serious debate to go with North Carolina running back Amarian Hampton. So, Denver might go with a running back here. Mr. Hampton out of North Carolina. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the 21st pick goes to Jackson Dart. Dart's name has gone straight up the draft boards. Behind Shedeur Sanders, of course. Behind Cam Ward, of course. But he is the number 3 quarterback in the draft. Laser arm, Ole Miss. Pittsburgh is the right call here. Pittsburgh needs a young quarterback. Number 22, Derek Harmon, Oregon. Defensive lineman, LA Chargers. Number 23 overall, Jahdae Barron. He had a great year last year with the Texas Longhorns. Holy smokes. Going to the Green Bay Packers. I would not like to see that. Malachi Starks, Georgia. Again, Harrison Smith. This has got to be his last season. The great safety, Harrison Smith out of Notre Dame. 36 years old. Holy smokes. Starks would be the good pick here. Number 25, Josh Simmons, OT. The Buckeyes. Going to Houston. Number 26, Jalen Milroe, the 4th quarterback in the draft. Going to the LA Rams. Pretty interesting. Another Alabama Crimson Tide coming in the first round. Micaiah Williams, edge rusher, Georgia. Going to Baltimore. Edge rusher, Donovan as a Roku. The great edge rusher out of Boston College. Now, when you saw Boston College play, this was the guy. This was the guy in the defensive line, explosive player. Emmanuel Nick, look, another great player, South Carolina Gamecocks, safety, going to the Washington Commanders. Iman Wari is a great player. This guy, there was a couple of games last year where this guy was all over. The announcers had to keep talking about him. He made play after play after play after play. Walter Nolan, great defensive lineman. Now, he's not an edge rusher. He's not a defensive tackle. He's a little bit of a tweener I always thought he was a nose tackle, but I guess he's not. He's going to play the 3-tech or something. I'm not really sure what they're going to have him do. Walter Nolan was an absolute beast for Ole Miss. They're going to miss him. Josh Connery, OT, Oregon, looking to go to Kansas City Chiefs. And James Pierce sneaks into the first round. Now they got him as an edge rusher. He started off as a linebacker for the Tennessee Volunteers. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're thinking. That was the CBS Sports mock draft. Cowboys need help everywhere. Morris Simmons, take care. You take care. Take care of yourself, Mr. Seminole. Tyler Warren, best player in the draft. I wouldn't go there, but he's top 10 in my opinion. Jackson Dart, man, that guy has got a live arm. He's got a live arm. Okay, so somebody wants me to do the NFL draft. We'll think about it. I kind of want to do it. Over the last couple of years, I have not wanted to do it. Okay, so let's talk about this Big Ten voting faction, and then we'll get to your phone calls if you want to call in. Again, this is just a nice, no dramatic. We're just talking football. We've been talking football the whole time here. But now we're going to talk a little bit about Big Ten politics, because it's important. And I'm not going to go into too much details. I'm not going to talk about it for like 20 minutes. I'm just going to give you an example. When we did our April 8th show, and that was already 11 days ago. And I talked about the lay of the land, which we thought, where we gave you the direction where we thought this was all going. We think the SEC, when they expand, is going to take a large scoop. We think it's going to be more than a North Carolina, Virginia. We think it's going to be also include the Seminoles and the Tigers. This is what we believe. It may change, or we might end up being completely wrong, but there's a reason why we've talked about it. We're not going to go through all that on April 8th, but go check out our April 8th live show if you missed it, you wanted to get details about why we think the way we're thinking here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner. In that live show, we discussed how Michigan, there is Big Ten presidential interest in Miami. Miami don't control their own destiny. Miami needs the things to fall perfectly for them. Not perfectly, but they need things to fall correctly for them. But Michigan does have some Big Ten traction interest. We talked about how Miami's research fits what the Big Ten wants at this time. Miami is considered the mini Michigan. Out of 400 and some, people talk about numbers of how much research expenditures that these universities do, and that's very important for Big Ten presidents. But it's what they're doing with the research that is also important. What do these colleges, universities focus on? What Miami is great at is what Michigan is great at, and Miami's research is very attractive to Big Ten universities, Michigan. Out of the $400 and some million that Miami does in research expenditures, About 175 of that goes to the National Institution of Health, NIH funding. And it's genetics. Miami is doing some things, some big things. It's growing, and that has caught the attention of everybody. It is the reason why Miami was voted in the private club of AAU. Miami has that box checked off. Okay. Just giving an example. Now, that doesn't mean Miami's going to go in the Big Ten. It doesn't. We've talked about this. You know, things have to go in certain directions. But Miami is a serious candidate. A serious candidate. Serious candidate. We believe they're target number 3 behind North Carolina and Notre Dame. And they would help other schools in the Southeastern Conference to get to the Big Ten, to help have that, if North Carolina goes to the SEC, if Virginia goes to the SEC, if Notre Dame doesn't want to move yet, then that third target is Miami. Then the Big Ten presidents are going to have to sit down and go say, okay, what's available? What could happen here? And we believe it'd be Miami, Florida State, Miami, Duke, Miami, Georgia Tech. If Florida State and Clemson don't get picked off by the SEC, which we think they're going to. But the third target, the third place that the Big Ten presidents will focus on is Miami. Now, Michigan, we talked about this before. Michigan, Wisconsin have pretty much, they've always been together. Always been. They are a voting faction, and they have been the most powerful voting faction. Now, as the conference gets bigger, maybe their power gets a little bit diluted, but those are the top research universities besides Johns Hopkins. Washington is big. It joins them in that top tier. Northwestern's in that top tier. Northwestern is part of the Michigan-Wisconsin faction. Minnesota is part of the Wisconsin-Michigan faction. But it is Michigan and Wisconsin that takes the lead in internal Big Ten politique. Michigan's president, who used to be Cincinnati's president, who used to be McGill University president. You're going to have to get Michigan support. You're going to have to get Ohio State, Penn State support. But you're also going to have to get the Michigan, Wisconsin support. Because Michigan, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Minnesota, they're going to vote as a block. That's 4 votes. That's 4. The University of Minnesota's president just came from Michigan. Mrs. Cunningham. When she was at Michigan, she was the point person for research. She was the leader on research underneath the president. If you look at Cunningham, I'm not gonna do it deep. I'll let other people do it, or I might do it later on. I'm trying to. A lot of people are focusing on viewership numbers, but there's a whole other animal to this. You got to get the president's votes. Cunningham, president of the University of Minnesota, was the lead person at Michigan. She had a goal. She did a lot of... Okay. She was very successful at Michigan. When the University of Minnesota president job came open, right away she was the leading contender. And she became the president. Now, Minnesota has always, and if you know University of Minnesota, it's medical research. Rochester, the Mayo, it's all Rochester, that campus is all part of University of Minnesota. Minnesota is going to vote, is going to do what Michigan does. So is Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, and I'm going to have to be very careful here. Again, this is a lazy Saturday afternoon show. I wanted to talk college football. We talked a lot of college football, G5 contenders, the NFL draft. I just want to get this out there so people are, at least you have a place to hear that there's this other animal out there. Wisconsin's leadership, current leadership, is allegedly a little radical. So, it's gonna be hard to get Wisconsin's vote. Very difficult to get Wisconsin's vote. And of course, Wisconsin. So what I'm saying is Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Northwestern, those four presidents, you might be able to lose all four of them and still get into the Big Ten. But the margin of error is so small at that point. And these presidents do not think like sports fans. So, when we get back to talking about like a Clemson, when we get to talk like a Florida State, this is why PATC have said Florida State needs the right blend. They need a Miami. They need somebody that can tickle the fancy of those presidents. I'm giving you more detail now. I'm making it more personal now. I'm letting you know who are the gatekeepers of this elitism. And it's not just them, but Purdue is not in that faction. Purdue is an incredible university, but they look at other things. They're in engineering. They're, like they would support Georgia Tech, for example. So there are different factions in this. And even if everybody watches this show and says, Greg, you're wrong. Okay, I'm wrong. But I got to tell you, all these institutions know where their strengths are in the Big Ten to get the Big Ten votes and where their weaknesses are. And right now they're socializing. Right now, the universities are trying to get schools in the Big Ten to sponsor them. To have them as their proxy. Georgia Tech might have Purdue as their proxy, probably. Miami's probably going to have Michigan as their proxy. Pretty good proxy. Florida State is looking for a proxy. Right? You want somebody to carry your banner within the conference. Same thing is happening in the SEC. Florida State and Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia are looking. Georgia Tech, not Georgia Tech, excuse me. Virginia, North Carolina, Florida State, they're looking for their sponsor, the one who's going to carry the banner for them in the SEC. And I think they probably all got something, somebody, somewhere. Right? So, again, of course the media company needs to pay for it, but the presidents need to vote on you. They need to feel comfortable in voting for an institution, because this vote is not just about the next 5 years of viewership numbers. It's about the next 50 years of that school being a member of your conference. It is incredibly important. For the Big Ten, it takes 13 votes. With the media partner willing to pay enough for the conference to say, okay, we'll do it, and for the school itself that's trying to come into the conference that says, okay, we'll do it. You need 13 votes. So you can lose the Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Northwestern faction and still get in the conference. But you cannot lose those 4 schools and Ohio State and Penn State. And basically, you're going to have to get the Buckeye support off of Jump Street right away. And then you got to look at the history of President Carter of Ohio State. President Carter, who was the university president of Nebraska, who shouted at the rooftops more than once that we at Nebraska must get this thing together. We cannot be left behind. We cannot be the oddball in the Big Ten. And Nebraska has done some stuff. Now Carter has gone to Ohio State and he's got the most power when it comes to this next realignment wave. Again, more hint, hint, wink, wink, that even if you're a big-time, big-brand school like Clemson, you're going to need the right blend to get you into the Big Ten. It ain't going to be Clemson and Florida State. And I know other people are thinking that, they're reporting that or they're thinking that, and that's great. But from what we've been told, it's absolutely will not happen. So if they want to join the Big Ten, they're going to have to find a partner. And that partner and them are going to have to find enough voting block, enough votes to get it done. Same thing with Florida State. You're going to have to find 13 votes with the right partner. We're talking real politics here. We're talking real politique with the Big Ten presidents who are not the same as you and I. It has always been important. We said on our live show just the other day, the Big Ten is still the Big Ten. I know everything I'm saying is so unpopular. I get it. But it's the truth. It's the truth. You got to get the votes. Okay, we're going to open up the phone lines. You can talk anything in college football that your heart desires. Preston from Greensboro, happy Easter tomorrow, everyone. Thank you so much for the generous super chat. Thank you, Preston. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you for the wonderful super chat. Clemson's former athletic director is, Dan Radakovich. Absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe a Clemson-Miami thing. Whatever it is. I mean, we can speculate, but it ain't going to be Clemson and Florida State. Not to the Big Ten. Maybe to the SEC with North Carolina and Virginia. Now, if I'm wrong, if it is Clemson and Florida State to the Big Ten, I'll take the big L here. But, I'm trying to be as honest and transparent as possible. There are people out there that are still pounding the table that the only thing that matters is how big a football brand you are. That's the only thing that matters to the Big Ten presidents. And every history tells you completely different. The Oregon and Washington, that story it's not just about the viewership numbers. USC, UCLA, UCLA wasn't about the viewership numbers. Rutgers and Maryland. I mean, it goes on and on and on. You see what the Big Ten candidates are. Stanford and California were Big Ten candidates. Stanford probably still is. Maybe California is. But the media partner was saying no to Kevin Warren. So this is not just about the viewership numbers. And plus, if you're talking about viewership numbers, how valuable are those numbers? It depends on the demographics of who's watching the games. The incomes, the extra the extra money that people have to buy products and services. It ain't just about the bloody viewership numbers. It never has been, and it never will be. They are important. They are extremely important. But if you're only focusing on that, you're not going to get the right, you are not going to get the right vision of what is happening. There are people out there who have gotten, I mean, God bless them, but they've gotten every expansion wrong of the Big Ten over the last decade. And they're the ones who are keep putting out there that it can be, it will be, it should be, it could be, it might be, it will be. Florida State and Clemson, it ain't happening. It's not going to be Florida State and Clemson. That is not even a possibility. I'm telling you something, guys. I'm trying to be honest and transparent as completely possible. If that happens, I will eat 2 cheeseburgers in front of this camera at the same time. The fat guy from Minnesota, cheeseburger is an abomination. I will eat 2 of them. It's just, you got to know how these Big Ten presidents work. What is their motivations? Yes, they want a successful, healthy athletic departments. The commissioner is keeping an eye on the market share of the SEC. The Big Ten presidents are keeping an eye on the market share of research, academia, academics, and all that stuff. You got to satisfy all that stuff in a Big Ten expansion. It can't be just about what Fox, it ain't going to be what just Fox wants. Because it hasn't been in the past and it's not going to be in the future. I'm being as transparent as possible. People don't like to talk about it. It's easier. Now, a lot of people have done a lot of great work with the numbers. God bless them all. They've done great work. But, you know, if okay, and I'll get to your phone calls in a moment here, but what if we go back in time? What if we go back in time before so on March 31st, 2022, when I put out there that USC's talking to the Big Ten, covered it for 3 months, and then it happened, right? But what if it was common knowledge that USC was talking to the Big Ten? What if it was like everybody knew it? Like it wasn't me that broke it. It was somebody else. Everyone was talking about it for 3 or 4 months. YouTube channels were talking about it for 3 or 4 months. It's going to be USC +1, USC +3. Who do you think people on X and these message boards, whatever, who do you think they thought was going to come with USC? Who? They would have thought it would be USC and Oregon. USC or somebody, not USC and UCLA, right? Be honest. They would have looked at the viewership numbers. But it wasn't going to be USC and Oregon. That's just one example that I'm trying to. There has to be something for the presidents. UCLA is a huge thing for the Big Ten presidents. Massive. The number 1 or number 2 public university in the country? It wasn't going to be USC and Oregon. It wasn't. It didn't even come close. It never had a chance. They wanted the city of Los Angeles, the whole thing, UCLA. They both, USC and UCLA, the rivalry, they both greased each other's skids, just like Washington and Oregon. That's why I always keep saying that Florida State best shot at getting to the Big Ten, not their only shot, but the Seminoles' best shot is that Miami blend. That is their best shot. But it ain't going to be Florida State and Clemson. It's not going to be, it just isn't going to happen. But anyway, let's get to your phone calls. You can disagree with me. You're absolutely okay to disagree with me. The phone lines are now open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. We have talked about everything on this live show. Lazy Saturday afternoon before all the big sport. Now, NBA playoffs have already begun today, but we've got a whole bunch of your WrestleMania is starting tonight. So we got to get this live show before you guys watch WrestleMania. Stanford's men's basketball coach Kyle Smith talking about relegation, basketball, ACC, but then he does acknowledge that Duke and North Carolina are unlikely to embrace relegation. Utah State Athletic Director Diana Sabu talked about what happened when they knew that the Pac-12 was going to poach 4 of the Mountain West schools. Utah State Athletic Director knew that they were not going to be in the first wave, but they were patient. They were finally taken. We talked about that early in the show. We went through the NFL CBS Sports mock draft that just came out a couple hours ago. We went through that as well.
Call from
Movie Time Blues.
Movie Time Blues. Thanks for your call, sir. I do appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Yes. One question I have, now considering the information, is which way will be the Pacific Coast Big Ten schools are going to? Which way are they going to vote?
That's who would they support? That's pretty interesting. I haven't had any real big old conversations about that with anybody, really. I think while their voices are important, even though they're new schools, their voices are very important. I don't think they're going to be. I think they're going to acquiesce to Ohio State and Penn State. Now, they will. I'm some of this is complete speculation. If there is some, for whatever reason, let's Movie Time Blues. We're just speculating here, okay? But let's
Right.
say Notre Dame, let's say the SEC does the large scoop expansion. And let's say Notre Dame then calls the Big Ten and says, okay, we're ready. We finally have to do this. We're finally willing to talk serious about joining the Big Ten. And that information is going to get to USC. I think then USC is going to have a large voice, not a veto pen, but they're going to have a large voice if there is a school that is added out west, because the Big Ten might go past 20 if Notre Dame is included in this next wave. Then I think USC is going to have a big voice. But when we're talking 19 or 20, we're talking about the ACC. I think USC is going to generally get in line. UCLA is going to definitely get in line with your Michigan, Wisconsin. USC is going to get in line with Penn State, Ohio State. I don't think they're going to be a leading faction in this. But again, their votes, they're one vote, one university, one vote, so they're going to count.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because when I'm analyzing this, there's a chance if let's say they get Notre Dame and then they also get the SEC scheduling agreement, there's a chance that they stop expansion after that, because you get Notre Dame and then you get the SEC scheduling agreement. That's a lot of big time gains, right? With those two moves, and how much money would they get if they were to spend after that? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the politics within the Big Ten hierarchy goes forward.
Yep. Because while there's a lot of commonality in the Big Ten and they want to keep that commonality, again, it's only natural that they disagree at times. They disagreed with the Oregon-Washington. There was disagreements with Rutgers and Maryland. They wanted North Carolina and Virginia at the time. So, but they both said no. But Delaney said we need to get into the second region. So there's going to be disagreements on this. I think Ohio State, while they're the top value brand in the conference, along with Michigan, have not been the driver of conference realignment, but they're going to be this time. So you got to get their support first, probably. Then you're probably going to have to get the Michigan, Wisconsin faction on your side as well.
All right, I'll let you go now. So,
all right, appreciate it, Movie Time Blues. Thank you so very much. Great call, sir. Thank you. Movie Time Blues, Rock and Rant. Thank you so much. A member, 15 months. Miami Hurricane Rock and Rant has been a member for 15 months. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Thank you so much, Rock and Rant, for your generosity. I appreciate it so very much. UCLA is a Miami vote. It was discussed with Julio Frank before he left Miami to go to UCLA. Miami might be the closest to USC sister school in the conference. Miami has a presidential support. They're not a lock. But I think they know where their future is going, and I think they've got a whole lot of support. We'll see what happens. Thomas Coker, Florida State is a top U.S. university, Greg. They are. This was by Forbes magazine. Florida State's a great university. I have no problem with any of that. Florida State is an emerging research university. Florida State is knocking on the door for AAU. They're going to have to make some adjustments. Florida State's a great university. Incredible, valuable football brand. But they're going to need help. And people have said this is a shot against Florida State. I get people love Florida State. The Seminoles love their university. I'm just being honest. Look, I said this on June 15th of last year. 6 weeks later, Brett McMurphy put out that article. I don't think things are as bad as they were then. But Florida State's got work to do. They do, and they've been working it. Look what they're trying to do with the hospital. Look what they're trying to do. Look what Florida State is trying to do. They know they got work. I'm not the one that's making it so they have work to do. This is just the reality, and I'm willing to tell you the truth. I told you the truth on June 15th of last year. I'm telling you the truth this year. They're not the number one Big Ten target. The correct blend is going to get Florida State into the Big Ten. The correct blend. Either be with North Carolina, either be it with Miami, or either be it with Notre Dame. Notre Dame is the longest shot of all of them. Miami, North Carolina, it works. But it ain't going to be Florida State and Clemson. Florida State, look, who in the Big Ten is, now I'm just going to put this out there. Who in the Big Ten is going to sponsor Florida State? Who is going to rally for their cause? Maybe they got a few schools lined up. Maybe they got Indiana. Maybe they got a Purdue. Maybe they got a Maryland. Maybe they got a Rutgers. You know, they would love to have another Eastern school, obviously. Maybe that is happening. I don't think it's happening with Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Northwestern. I don't know how President Carter of Ohio State feels about Florida State when he just left Nebraska and had to go through all the issues at Nebraska. The fear that they're going to get kicked out of the conference. A fear that I don't share with Nebraska leadership, but that is their fear. Because they're just not like the other Big Ten universities when it comes to the valuable research of this medical research. Florida State is one of the top universities in a lot of different metrics. But they have not been able to get into the AAU, and I would suggest that they're going to need help with the university that is big on what the Big Ten university presidents are looking for. A Miami, a North Carolina. Miami may need help. North Carolina's not going to need help. Miami may need help. A lot of these schools, they're all great schools. They all have a lot of value. But, you know, Oregon was a big-time brand. And they were not going to get in unless Washington wanted to get. Washington and Oregon were going to come in together. They were not going to come in alone. They both needed help. Think about the great University of UCLA. They needed help. They needed USC to come in. I'm just putting it out there, guys. Penn State Mountain says they are back in them. All right. I would listen to them if they seem like good guys. Big Mountain guys seem like good guys, and if they're saying that it's going to be Florida State and Clemson, I mean, I respect what they're saying. I have been doing this a long time. Maybe those two gentlemen have been doing this a long time. I have no idea. There's a reason why we got the USC story correct. There's a reason why we got the Washington, Oregon story correct. There's a reason we got the Colorado story correct. There's a reason why we got the Utah, Arizona State correct. There is reasons why we have broken other stories over the last decade. All I'm telling you is what I am being told very strongly from many, many people. Florida State, they are in the hunt. But it's got to be the right mix. You're not going to get the Big Ten president's vote. You got to ask yourself, why hasn't Florida State, why haven't they become AAU yet? There's a lot of great institutions out there that have not become AAU. Miami just got it. Notre Dame just got it. University of South Florida just got it. University of South Florida have been doing great research for 15 years. These presidents, they finally feel comfortable enough with you, so they socialize enough with you, they bring you, and to get into the Big Ten Conference, you got to have even more trust because it's not a private club with a lot of smaller universities. It's the Big Ten. When you come into the Big Ten, you're expected to be in the Big Ten for the next 100 years. You are expected to grow your university research, something that Nebraska has not been able to do. So it's tough. All I'm saying is it's not just about viewership. It's not just about the numbers. Clemson has a great university. Clemson has an AAU project to try to become AAU by 2035. But Clemson knows, Clemson knows that they're going to need the correct partner. They're going to need a North Carolina to get into the Big Ten. It's just the reality of it. Okay, cheeseburger times 2. Yeah, if it happens, I will eat 2 cheeseburgers on this channel at the same time. I will take a bite of one, I will take a bite of the other, I will take a bite of one, I will take a bite of the other until they're both gone if Florida State and Clemson go to the Big Ten. Together. A Florida State, Miami, it's a possibility. Florida State, North Carolina, it's a slimmer possibility. Florida State, Notre Dame is basically 0, but there is, in theory, a possibility. Florida State and Clemson, not a chance. And again, the same people, and I'm not talking about the Big Mountain podcast, the same people who have gotten every single Big Ten expansion wrong, every other expansion wrong, now they are pushing the Florida State Clemson because they don't really have a clue how the Big Ten works. They don't. God bless them, but they don't. They don't have a clue. So, anyways, I think we're going to wrap it up. We've been on the air for an hour and 38 minutes. I was shooting for like an hour-long program on a lazy Saturday afternoon. I know you're all going to be busy with sports. The NBA playoffs have begun. The Timberwolves versus the Lakers tonight. We are taking the Lakers down. Anthony Edwards is going to get 40 points. Look out, baby. Look out. We got a lot of stuff going on. WrestleMania. I'm not a WWE guy. I'm an AEW guy. But I'll take a look. I will take a look. Anyways, I want to appreciate everybody coming on in here. I want to appreciate the generosity of Mr. Preston from Greensboro and Rock and Rant. The phone call we got from Movie Time Blues. Just a little bit Saturday college football talk. Fat guy from Minnesota. I appreciate you all coming on here. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you liked our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Until next time, which is going to be tomorrow on a Sunday, I think we're going to do a little Easter show. We're going to try. If not, we'll have a big show lined up on Monday. Either way, until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please Please, y'all, take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.